Hello again, it's Kat. Today's video is going to be about the book titled Cherry Beets by Vicki James. Vicki James is also known as Victoria L. James. And if you look back through my videos, you will see that I've done a video previously on one of my favorite series that she has written, which is the Hounds of Babylon series, which just released its last and final book a few months ago now. I think it was in June. What an amazing journey that series was. One of my favorites. Yeah, I barely made it through that video without crying. So go back and read that series. She also she's written several books. I adore her. I love all of her writing. But she also wrote, which I talked about in the previous video as well, my favorite book character ever, my favorite book boyfriend, if you want to call it, Marcus Anderson. There's his book right over there. It's part of the Netflix series by Victoria L. James as well. Phenomenal story. Love Marcus. Love that he got his own book in that series. Highly, highly recommend both of those. She's written other books as well, which I adore. But this video might be a few minutes long, so I want to make sure that I get to talking about Cherry Beets. Cherry Beets did not disappoint. Like I said, I love Victoria's writing. I love her characters. This book is Tessa Lisbon and Presley West. I was warned that I was going to fall in love with another man that she has written, which I totally did. Presley West is he's not only swoony and sexy, but his heart and soul is beautiful. And I love that Vicki's writing comes across, the stories she tells, and the way that they affect my soul. I just am able to connect with them and take them right in, and I just adore them. You know, like I've said, my favorite genre to read is contemporary romance, and almost everything under that genre. I love love stories, and I always love and adore Victoria's love stories. This one was no different. So Tessa and Presley. Tessa and Presley have known each other since they were younger. Tessa in particular. She saw Presley when she was like a young girl, and she just was love struck. She just had such a crush on him. She always watched him from afar. She, just always had a major crush on him. Presley's a little bit older, and although we didn't know when the book started, he's always noticed her and always kind of liked her from afar, saw a spark in her when they were passing in the hallways at school or whatnot. So they are young adults when the book starts, and Presley is an up-and-coming drummer in a rock band called Youth Gone Wild. There's a lot of music in this story. I love that. There's an incredible playlist that Vicki put together for it. Music is, the story is based a lot around music, and Presley being a drummer, Tessa's love of music. She loves Bryan Adams, which you can't help but love that about her. She loves Bon effing Jovi, as she says, and they call them, I should say. She talks about different songs. They bond over, when they finally kind of spend some time together, they bond over their love of music and introduce each other to other types of music and songs. And I adored that part. Tessa works at a bar, and she loves her job. She's really close with the owner of the bar and his daughter. She has a great relationship with him. She's not real close with her family, doesn't really feel like she fits in. Her brother's kind of a jerk, and her parents have this kind of weird relationship where her dad just kind of lets her mom, like he put her mom on a pedestal, lets her do whatever she wants, unnaturally obsessed with each other, it seems like, And that's a relationship that Tessa doesn't want in her own life. She felt like her parents' relationship was important to them, and then her and her brother were just kind of the product of that, and they didn't really care. Like, they just had kids and that was fine. So it's kind of a weird dynamic with her family. She's not real close to her family at all. But she's super close to the bar owner. Bourbon is his name. And then she has an incredible, wonderful best friend, Molly, who I always love the secondary characters in the book, in Victoria's books as well. She's a rock star. Ha! No pun intended. Molly is a rock star best friend, and Tessa really leans on her. And so she's got this cute little family unit and friends that surround her in these two other people. Presley frequents the bar with dates, like all the time. It's always a different girl. He's always sitting there. Tessa's watching them from across the bar. Tessa and Presley have some banter between them. They've got to know each other a little bit. Tessa honestly, organically does not think that besides that and her just being the girl that works at the bar, that he knows anything about her, that he's taken any notice of her. And we feel the same way. We don't see any difference in their action at all. Although later we find out differently, that he had noticed her, and that part of him bringing the dates in the bar were to get her to kind of notice him back and make her jealous a little bit. So endearing, so cute when I found that out. Love that part. Like I said, their chemistry is, and I just don't mean their, romantic, chemistry is off the charts. Their banter is hysterical. The dialogue is hysterical. I loved back and forth how they just kind of went at each other all the time. And it was like, is that flirting? Is he flirting with her? She kind of puts him in his place a bunch. She doesn't, even though she totally idolizes him, she, kind of puts him in his place. She doesn't let him get away with anything. She kind of makes fun of the girls that he brings in, and, doesn't think for 1 second that he notices her. But funny enough, one night, he's with this girl on a date, and the girl is like, okay, so what's going on between you two? Like, why are you on a date with me when you want to be on a date with her? And they're both like, what? Oh, uh-huh. And that's where I got my first little peek into, he kind of likes Tessa more than she thinks he does. And so the girl leaves, and Presley leaves. And so Tessa's closing up the bar for the night, and she's cranked up the music, and, she's talking about the songs that are playing. And, I knew all of them. It was great. And at one point, Bed of Roses by Bon Jovi comes on. One of their best songs. I love Bon Jovi. It's a great song. John Bon Jovi belts out this ballad, and it's just a rock ballad, and I love that. And so she kind of gets lost to the music, and she's singing and she's dancing, while she's cleaning up, and she's all over, and she's turning the chair around, and she's just in her own little land enjoying the song in the background. And she's totally into music. Like I said, they kind of bond over that. And little does she know, he has walked back in the bar because he has decided, tonight's the night I'm going to take this further. She doesn't see him while she's going through all this. She's lost to the music, and he's watching her. And the song is over, and she looks up, and he's standing there, and she's kind of like, oops, you weren't really meant to see that, which was really funny. And you could totally picture something like that happening, And so they continue to talk, and he's definitely flirting with her, and she's kind of like, oh my gosh, this is my chance, and he's like, yeah, this is happening. And she's like, okay, I'm in. And it's funny because she says, when a man like Presley West shows interest in you, you don't suddenly find your morals or your ethical code when he unclasps your bra. It's so funny. She was like, she's gonna go for it too in return. And eyes wide open though, and I thought that was really funny. What we don't know until we flip to the next page, we don't get a lot of that night together with them. We get the build up, obviously, and then they decide, the chapter ends with Tessa is like, okay, I'm gonna do this. And the chapters are basically all from Tessa's perspective. We do get a lot of Presley at different parts, sprinkled in amongst the book. It's mostly from Tessa's perspective. But then the next chapter is 3 years later. And you're like, oh my God, wait, what? Wait, don't leave me hanging. Like, what was their night like? And I was like, oh, we're not going to get that part? Oh my gosh. We do get peeks into it later, and it's very sweet. And yeah, I really liked it. I was happy that we ended up getting it later. But like I said, the book picks up 3 years later, and Tessa has watched Presley become this rock star. And he's the drummer. I don't know if I mentioned that. He was kind of an up and coming drummer when, that night. And it turns out that, she really respects that about him and doesn't want to get in his way. And doesn't think that she has a chance for anything else besides a one night stand with him anyway. And so, it was, really sweet and endearing for me as a reader to watch, although she was pining for him and it took everything in her to let him go, she wanted him to have all the success he had coming for him because she knew how talented musician he was, and she respected that about him. So she has followed his career over the past 3 years, as hard as it's been for her, but she really did fall in love with him and wants the best for him. She sees things in him over these years that kind of break her heart a little bit, and she realizes, that he's starting to become lonely, and she sees things in his eyes that break her heart a bit. And there's something that happens. There's, a thing happens with paparazzi, and there's, of course, he's being followed everywhere, and so there's police that are sitting outside of the jail because he gets arrested, and you know that he's very protective over the leather jacket that's like his staple piece of attire, and something happens with that jacket, and there's something between Presley and Tessa about the jacket, and then to find out that this event is about the jacket. And, paparazzi's everywhere, and they catch every little glimpse of it, and they're dissecting it, and everyone's talking about it, and she feels so bad for him. And she sees him leave she's home from work. She sees him on TV leave the police station. It's like he was recorded it. They're showing it on the news, and she's like yelling at the TV, and she's so mad for him and so protective of him. And then her phone starts ringing and ringing and ringing, and she's like ignoring it. She doesn't know the number, and there's knocking on her door, and she's like, and it turns out it's Presley, and she's. She doesn't know, like, at first who's calling her and who's knocking on the door. And then he's like, Tessa, he's like, open the door. I know you're in there. I've been hearing you yell at the TV for the last 15 minutes. It was so cute. So he calls her Cherry. So that's where Cherry Beats. Get it? He's a drummer. Cherry. Cherry is she has like bright red hair. And so that's where, the typical cherry, you call, girls with red hair cherry. So that's where that comes from. And he uses it like super flirty with her, use that nickname super flirty with her. And, she calls him rock star and rock god and all this, which is like their flirty names for each other. And, but when he's serious, he calls her Tessa. So she notices when they're showing him on TV, she says, the lonely, smoldering drummer always at the back. And like she sees that about him because they connected on that night together, and they both knew they did. We don't know from Presley till later, how much he connected with her and felt for her. And then she also says, the bad side to the good boy revealed for the whole world to see. She sees that he's so vulnerable and so lonely with this incident where he got arrested, and her heart really breaks for him. So when he's there, she's like, can I open the door to him and allow him, because she's been heartbroken, you know, and kind of in a rut since their night together. It was amazing and she wouldn't take it back, but she knows opening that door opens literally the figurative door to her heart, and she doesn't know if she could handle it again. There's a part in chapter 10 where we get so much more of how Presley feels for her and how he sees her, and he had her pegged. And, you know, lo and behold, he wants, you know, he comes back because he saw all that. And it's at a point in his life where he needs her. She grounds him. He felt something for her that he had never felt before. He felt safe with her. He wanted her. He you know, felt like she was the person that could, you know, that was his person, that could make his life. He could share his life with her. She was the, you know, the one. And, you know, we didn't know that until chapter 10, really. You know, and Tessa is like, you know, she wanted him to have that life and, you know, wanted him to have all the success, but had no idea that, you know, he felt the way he did. And they really connected on a way that she didn't realize. She had, of course, hoped, but was like, nope, this is just our one time. So chapter 10 was pivotal in me, you know, figuring out exactly where they were about each other. So he wants to spend some time with her because he needs that. His soul is tired. And he knows that when he is with her, he feels things that, you know, really make him better as a person. And so, you know, she's kind of like, oh, you know, she's like willing to let him use her again. But yet he says he wants more, but he knows that she's afraid of that. And you know, he also knows that it's not a great time in his life, but he wants to be selfish and have it with her. So she says, we were only meant to be a one-night stand. And he says, isn't that the way all the best love stories start? And it was like, yes! Tessa really doesn't want to stand in his way. And even though they say that to each other, she's willing to let him go again. And feels like that's the right thing to do for him, that he has so much more to live of life. And she, back in their town outside of London, that's where her life is. And doesn't see that, you know, she feels like if she asks for more or wants more, even though she wants more, that's going to get in the way of his life and the projectile of his life, being this, you know, rock star. Where he's almost like this, the other side to the same coin, in that he's like, but I want you with me. I want you as my person to go through this with. Come live this life with me. But he knows that she's not willing to take even a half a step forward towards him. And so I really struggled with that, because I was like, go for it. Just do it. And he wants to know more about her, and he's asking her questions about her life and her family and all that stuff when he really is trying to get to know her. And she's holding herself back from him because she's already feels like he broke her heart through no fault of his own. And if she gives him more, the past 3 years have been so hard on her already that she might not recover from this ever from him, that he's already ruined her for any other man. She's not dated anyone. And if she opens up more to him, then that's going to happen. But he wants it. And, you know, she says, she does, so he's, you know, he says, tell me about your family. And so she says to him, if I tell you, you have to let me go. You have to let me walk out the door tonight. Or this morning, today, whatever it was. So guess what? He lets her walk out the door. He gives her what she wants. They were so caught up in what was best for each other that they were stopping each other from getting what they want and what they need in each other. Ah, that's where the angst was. It killed me. But then Presley says, one of these days we're going to stop walking out on each other. Ah, it gives me tears right now. Yep, he had these lines and that just, yeah, you couldn't help but fall in love with him. So as you can imagine, because they start to get involved with each other, that everyone's hounding him. Plus there was this moment where he gets arrested. So everyone's after him already. And everyone's trying to get a piece of her when they realize she has something to do with him. And there's this one bitchy reporter, Janie something, and she doesn't, you don't like her from the beginning, and she's trying to dig, and she tries to put people in Tessa's life to learn more about her because she wants to know what's going on with her. Why does he like her? She's not his typical bimbo. She's also kind of looks down at Tessa because she doesn't feel like, she's worthy. Tessa's just Tessa. She wears jeans, her Bryan Adams t-shirt, and her Doc Martens. And, Janie walks into the bar where Tessa works, and she's in stilettos, and she's all made up, and she's beautiful. And so, Janie wants him for herself. And she's like, why are you so special? Once Tessa figures out who she is, what she's doing, all that. And of course, like I said, she's very protective of him. So there's something going on with this Janie person, and you don't like her from the get-go. Something I thought was very astute about Presley is that he sees how her family life affects how she is with him and how she talks about him because of that night where she said, if I tell you about my family, you have to let me go. He picks up on that immediately. I didn't even pick up on it till later in the story where he talks about it. And he gives her a lecture. He's kind of puts her in her place about, you're either with me or you're not. And I highlighted again, my highlights were out of control with this book. I highlighted that whole lecture he gave her. And he put her in check a bit about them in a way that I really respected, because he respected her, and it wasn't all fluff, and it was a really poignant part of the book for me. And he pegged her parents' relationship before I even did, even though, like I said, she wasn't close with her family, but he pegged that from the get-go. And once he said that to her, it was like the light bulb went off for her, and she was like, oh, he's right. After the lecture, Tessa says about Presley and, him and what he had said to her. And I want to read it because it was amazing. Goddamn drummer boy with his poetic words, hands of destruction, and that honest heart that somehow I held the key to. It was so great because they were finally going to do it. They were going to finally figure out how to do it, if they could do it. And that's the kind of stuff that Victoria writes. That's amazing. A little bit later in the story, what I thought was going to happen actually did come back and happen. And there's something that transpires about that reporter, that woman, Janie. And it was so sad. I was so mad. But Tessa says all it took was a look at him to know. And she says, all it took was to see the guilt on his face, and how she thought that his face only would ever bring her happiness. It was really sad. I was really mad. So I read this book while I was on vacation, and I was finishing it up on the plane ride home. And I'm kind of glad I was on the plane, because chapter 43 had me in freaking tears. But I was on the plane and I didn't want anyone to see me crying. So I had to control myself. And I think if I would have been at home reading it like I normally would be, that I probably would have been bawling. Victoria always makes me cry in her books. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that phenomenal? That's how moved her stories make me. I wanted to cry. I had tears. I did actually have a tear, but I held it in through that whole chapter. And then there's a couple more chapters after that. Chapter 46, oh my God. Another one. Just a beautiful representation and culmination of their love story and the journey that it just took us on in this book. And with all this dialogue and all them trying to find each other and their chemistry, and it was so sexy and it was so amazing to be moved in all the different emotions that it moves you in and the ride you go on with them. So once again, I highly recommend Cherry Beets. It is another incredible book by Vicki James, Victoria L. James. I highly recommend it. Let me know if you have read it in the comments below, or if you have read any of the other awesome books that she has written. I already can't wait to go back and read it again. I have read all of her books, start to finish, at least twice. They are my favorites to go back to. Thanks for watching and hanging out with me today. I will see you soon.